My name is Isabella Carter, and if I had to choose one word to describe my place in my family, it would be invisible. I had grown used to walking into rooms where my name wasn't spoken, where my face barely registered in the crowd. But nothing prepared me for the night my brother Jonathan got married, when my absence was louder than my presence. The venue was one of those sprawling vineyard estates outside Charleston, the kind of place with white columns and sweeping lawns that my parents loved to show off to their friends. They spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers, polished marble floors, a jazz band in the corner playing as if they were auditioning for the Met. It was the perfect setting for them to celebrate Jonathan, their golden child. I arrived early, like always. Old habits never die when you've spent years training yourself to be on time before the whistle blows. I walked in wearing a simple navy cocktail dress, modest heels, and my hair pulled into a neat bun. No glitter, no sparkle. I wanted to blend in, to be a shadow among the silk gowns and black tuxedos. And it worked. No one recognized me. Aunt Clara brushed by with a fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be one of Jonathan's cousins, right?" she said, before drifting off without waiting for an answer. I didn't correct her. I let her guess, let her believe I was no one. That was easier than watching the disappointment flicker across her face if she remembered who I really was. At the reception hall, I found my name missing from the seating chart. Instead, there was a neat line that read +1 beside some distant relative's name. That was me, not daughter, not sister. Just a placeholder. I sat quietly at table 9, near the kitchen doors, where waiters slipped in and out like ghosts balancing trays of champagne flutes. From the back, I could watch without being seen. I folded my napkin in my lap and listened to the laughter at the front tables where the important guests were seated. When the toasts began, my father stood tall and proud, his voice carrying easily over the music. "Jonathan has always made us proud," he said, raising his glass. "Brave, loyal, a natural leader. He's the son every father dreams of." My mother glowed beside him, nodding along as if she had never given birth to a second child. Not once did they mention my name. Not once did they look my way. And sitting there, with the clinking of glasses echoing in the distance, I realized something. They had built this stage for Jonathan, but without knowing it, they had also built it for me. Because before this night ended, someone would speak my name out loud. And when they did, it would silence every smirk in that room. I was 18 the night I realized I would never hear pride in my father's voice. It was the evening I told him I had been accepted into the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, something I had worked toward since my sophomore year. While other kids my age were thinking about prom dresses or football games, I was running extra miles, studying leadership manuals, memorizing codes and regulations. I thought if I did everything by the book, then maybe, just maybe, he would finally look at me differently. The house smelled of roast beef and bourbon that night, like it always did on Sundays. My mother had set the table carefully, silverware lined like soldiers, as if preparing for a guest who never arrived. Jonathan had disappeared into his room, no doubt laughing into a headset while gaming with his friends. I sat at the table in my pressed shirt, my acceptance letter folded neatly beside my plate, ready to share the biggest news of my life. "Dad," I began, my voice steady, though my hands trembled slightly. "I got in. The academy. They accepted me." For a split second, I thought I saw surprise in his eyes, but it was gone before I could breathe it in. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass and let out a low sigh. "It's a political move," he said flatly. "They take more girls now. Don't let it get to your head. Just don't embarrass yourself." The words landed heavier than any slap. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to sit still, to keep my face neutral the way I had practiced for interviews. "You're not built for it, Isabella," he continued, eyes fixed on the ice in his drink. "You're good with people, sure. Maybe logistics, but combat? No. You fold laundry like it's a ceremony. You cry when a stray cat limps across the yard. You're too soft." I stared at him, my acceptance letter burning a hole in the table. All I wanted in that moment was for him to look up, to say he believed in me. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, already bored with the topic, and muttered, "Good luck, I guess." That was it. No handshake. No, "I'm proud of you." Just a half-hearted dismissal, as if my dream was a passing phase. Later that night, I sat on the porch alone, while the cicadas hummed and the world around me moved on. I tied my boots by myself, zipped my bag by myself, and when dawn broke, I boarded a bus that carried me away from Charleston and from the hope of ever earning his approval. And as the house grew smaller in the window behind me, I made a promise. If he wanted me to fail, I would rise so high that even his silence couldn't touch me. The first days at the academy stripped away every comfort I had ever known. The Colorado air was thin and sharp, cutting into my lungs with every mile I ran. The mornings began before the sun, a whistle shrieking through the dark like a warning shot. We stood in formation with stiff backs and raw eyes, our boots heavy, our stomachs half empty. I thought I had prepared myself, but nothing could have prepared me for the silence. Not the silence of the drills. That was filled with orders barked from the diaphragm of men who looked like carved stone, but the silence of being forgotten. Other cadets ripped open care packages stuffed with cookies, Polaroids, and notes from home. My locker stayed empty, no letters, no calls, not even a sarcastic scribble from Jonathan, just silence that grew louder each week. On my birthday, a card arrived. The envelope had been opened before it even reached my hands. Inside, my mother had written only 5 words. "Hope you're doing okay. Dad says hi." That was it. No, "we miss you." No, "we're proud." Just a sentence that stung worse than a drill sergeant's roar. There were nights when I sat on the edge of my bunk, socks soaked from another rain-soaked run, boots still muddy, wondering if my father had been right. Maybe I wasn't built for this. Maybe my softness, the same softness he despised, would crack under the weight of the academy. But then came the moments when quitting wasn't an option. When you're sprinting across the field with blisters bleeding into your shoes, or when you're holding a rifle steady with your arms trembling like wires, the only thing that keeps you moving is the voice inside that whispers, "Keep going." I learned to swallow the blood in my mouth after a fall, to march through rain that stung like needles, to stare straight ahead while an officer screamed inches from my face. I learned the art of not flinching. What surprised me most was that somewhere in the exhaustion, I began to feel something new. Power. It wasn't the loud, boastful kind. It was the quiet strength of standing back up when no one expects you to. The kind of strength no one could take from me, not even my father. By the end of that first year, I no longer dreamed about earning his approval. I stopped imagining him in the crowd at graduation. I knew better now. The academy had burned that wish out of me and replaced it with something fiercer. I wasn't surviving just the academy anymore. I was surviving the version of me my family had tried to erase, and I was winning. By the time I graduated the academy, I was no longer the girl who cried when a cat limped across the yard. I was Lieutenant Isabella Carter, a woman who could march through storms, carry 50 pounds of gear without breaking stride, and give orders in a voice that didn't shake. Still, in my parents' world back in Charleston, I was just the complicated daughter, the one they didn't quite know what to do with. Deployment came quickly, first to dusty airfields in the Middle East, then to forward operating bases where nights stretched on forever and the desert wind carried whispers of danger. I learned how to read maps in total darkness, how to make split-second decisions when radio silence meant no one was coming to help, and how to lead men who were older, stronger, and skeptical of a woman giving commands. The first mission I led was a test. 20 soldiers deep in unfamiliar territory, communications cut within an hour. I felt every eye on me, waiting for hesitation. But hesitation never came. We moved as one, dodging ambushes, finding cover, and by morning we were back across the line without a single casualty. That was the day they stopped questioning if I belonged. At 27, I had already led more successful missions than some officers twice my age. At 30, I faced the moment that would define me. A call came through. 47 soldiers pinned down, trapped in an ambush with collapsing air support. No backup, no guarantees, just us. I remember the chaos of that night. Gunfire rattling the walls, radios hissing static, sand whipping into our eyes. The decision fell on me, and there wasn't time to second guess. We pushed forward under cover of smoke, weaving through the fire like ghosts. I shouted orders that cut through the madness, each one sharper, louder, more certain than the last. Hours later, every one of those 47 soldiers was alive, standing in formation, staring at me, with a kind of respect no medal could replicate. That operation earned me a Silver Star nomination and a new title, Colonel Carter. It wasn't handed to me. I carved it with sweat, grit, and every scar I carried. And yet, when I called home, there was nothing. My parents didn't ask what I was doing, didn't care to know. They were too busy showing off Jonathan's new promotion at a bank, bragging about his shiny new car. To them, I was still invisible. But I didn't mind anymore, because I wasn't saving my story for them. I was saving it for the world. And when the world finally spoke my name, it would silence every lie they had ever told about me. The vineyard estate glowed brighter as dusk settled, lanterns strung across the courtyard, and chandeliers spilling light into every corner of the reception hall. Guests in tailored suits and jeweled gowns moved with champagne flutes in hand, laughter echoing against the marble. To everyone there, it was Jonathan's perfect night. To me, it was just another reminder that I didn't belong. I slipped into my seat at table 9, tucked away near the kitchen doors. From there, I watched the waiters glide in and out, carrying trays of shrimp cocktails and slices of beef tenderloin. The air smelled of money, of celebration, of everything my parents valued. I wasn't part of it. Not really. The program was passed around the tables, listing speeches, music selections, and slideshows. My name wasn't there, not once. Family members were listed, college roommates, colleagues, even neighbors who lived down the street. But me? I was nowhere. It was like I had never existed. The slideshow began, projected onto a towering white screen. Photos of Jonathan as a toddler splashing in the surf, Jonathan scoring his first soccer goal, Jonathan grinning at his college graduation. The crowd chuckled, applauded, teared up. Then came a video clip from our childhood backyard. He was climbing a tree, arms flailing, feet searching for the next branch. What the room didn't see was that I had been just below, guiding his steps, steadying the trunk, making sure he didn't fall. That part was edited out. The video cut before I entered the frame. I sat quietly, my hands folded in my lap. I didn't laugh. I didn't clap. I had stopped expecting fairness a long time ago. At one point, my mother floated past my table, her sequined dress catching the light. She leaned close enough for only me to hear. "Try not to talk too much about your career tonight. People came here to celebrate Jonathan, not to hear about your strange choices." I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I no longer needed to fight her. Silence had become my weapon. From across the hall, my father raised his glass again, leading another toast for Jonathan, his accomplished son. His voice rang with pride, the kind of pride I had once begged for. I let the words wash over me, cold and hollow. They thought this stage belonged entirely to Jonathan. They thought I would sit in the shadows, unseen, unheard. But what they didn't realize was that by building this moment for him, they had unknowingly built the perfect moment for me. Because before the night ended, the name they refused to say would echo across this hall, and when it did, not even their silence could bury it again. The band had just started another Sinatra number when the microphone squealed, cutting through the chatter. The master of ceremonies, a tall man in a dark suit, stepped forward, holding a small envelope. His brow furrowed, as if the card inside surprised even him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying over the crowd, "before the next toast, we have a very special recognition." The room shifted. Forks paused. Conversations hushed. My father glanced at my mother with raised eyebrows, clearly not expecting anything unscheduled. "This honor," the MC continued, "is for a guest among us who displayed extraordinary courage and leadership during Operation Falcon's Shield, a mission that saved 47 soldiers under heavy fire. Tonight, the Department of Defense insisted that she receive her recognition, even if it meant bringing the ceremony here. I felt my pulse hammering against my collarbone. Around me, heads swiveled, whispers rising like wind. The MC's eyes scanned the room before locking on me. "Colonel Isabella Carter, would you please stand?" For a second, the air itself seemed to freeze. Chairs scraped the floor as guests craned their necks. Someone dropped a glass. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, mascara smudging beneath her eyes. I rose slowly, smoothing the skirt of my navy dress. My heels struck the marble with sharp, deliberate clicks as I stepped into the center light. Gasps rippled through the hall, and then the doors opened. A cluster of uniformed officers marched in, their boots pounding in perfect rhythm. At the front was Captain Daniel Rivera, once my trainee, now crisp in his dress uniform. He halted 5 feet in front of me, clicked his heels, and snapped into a salute. "Colonel Carter," he said, his voice ringing against the chandeliers. "It's an honor." One by one, the officers behind him raised their hands in salute, not out of obligation, but out of recognition. They knew who I was. And now, so did everyone else. Rivera opened a black velvet case, revealing the silver star gleaming under the lights. He pinned it carefully just above my heart. "For valor under fire," he declared, "and for saving 47 lives." Gasps, murmurs, even nervous laughter spread across the room. My father's jaw clenched, his eyes locked on me as if he were seeing a stranger. The entire moment lasted less than 3 minutes, but the silence afterward stretched endlessly. No one clapped, no one toasted. They simply stared, realizing the truth they had ignored for years. For the first time in my life, my name didn't vanish into silence. It landed like thunder. The room buzzed with unease after the officers marched out, their boots echoing like punctuation marks against marble. Conversation picked up in fragments, whispers, nervous laughter, clinking glasses. But no one looked at me the way they had before. Some stared with awe, others with discomfort, but none could pretend I wasn't there anymore. My mother sat rigid, mascara streaked down her cheeks, a napkin twisted in her hands as if she might wring it apart. My father remained frozen, his glass of scotch untouched, jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. The proud man who once told the world Jonathan was the son every father dreamed of now had nothing to say at all. Jonathan was the first to break the silence. Still flushed from champagne and the celebration meant for him, he stumbled toward my table, tugging at his tuxedo collar. "Colonel?" he whispered as he slid into the empty seat beside me. His eyes searched mine with something I hadn't seen since we were kids. Curiosity instead of contempt. "How the hell did you keep that quiet?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at him, letting the silence do what words never could. He leaned back, exhaling a disbelieving laugh. 47 lives, is he? Damn! For a fleeting second, he wasn't the golden son or the spoiled favorite. He was just my brother, shocked into respect. But it didn't last. He asked in a hushed voice, "Did Mom and Dad know?" I shook my head. They never asked. Later, needing air, I stepped out into the garden. The night was warm, the vineyard lights casting soft shadows along the hedges. Crickets sang in the dark as my heels clicked against the stone path. I thought I was alone until I heard voices around the corner. My father's tone was low, measured, the same tone he used when he wanted to sound reasonable while cutting someone down. "She could have told us," he muttered. "We weren't against her. We just didn't think she'd make it that far." My mother said something I couldn't make out, her voice trembling. I froze. My breath caught in my chest. Didn't think I'd make it that far. As if my career, my scars, my rank were accidents. As if survival itself was luck, not grit. That was the moment it hit me, not like a slap, but like a quiet, steady truth. He wasn't sorry, not proud, just surprised. And strangely, it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. Because somewhere along the way, I had stopped needing his pride to define me. I didn't step back into the reception hall after that. The music had started up again, the band playing a forced, cheerful tune, but I had heard what I needed. My father's words were still fresh in my ears. We just didn't think she'd make it that far. I slipped through the side gate of the garden, the vineyard lights glowing behind me, and walked toward the gravel lot where my rental car waited. No one noticed me leave, no one called my name, and that was fine. Inside the car, I took a deep breath, sliding the metal case from my pocket onto the passenger seat. The silver star gleamed faintly in the dim light. For a moment, I just stared at it, remembering the desert wind, the gunfire, the faces of the 47 soldiers I had let out alive. That medal wasn't for my parents. It wasn't even for me. It was for them, the men and women who trusted my voice when the night threatened to swallow us whole. As I drove back into Charleston, the city lights reflecting off the windshield, I caught my own eyes in the rearview mirror. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't see the invisible daughter who had been overlooked at every family dinner, erased from every slideshow, silenced in every toast. I saw a woman who had endured, who had stood when others doubted, who had led with courage when fear could have broken her. I saw Colonel Isabella Carter. That night taught me something I wish I had learned years earlier. Family can choose not to see you, but their blindness does not erase your worth. You don't need their applause to validate the battles you've fought. Some victories are meant to be recognized by the world, not by the ones who once doubted you. The truth is, their silence became the fire that forged me. Every missed letter, every cold dismissal, every forgotten mention at the dinner table, it all became fuel. I carried it into the academy, into the desert, into every mission where the weight of lives rested on my shoulders. And in the end, it was not their pride that lifted me up, but my own resilience. So, if you've ever been made to feel small in a room where you should have belonged, if your name was left off the list or your work dismissed like it meant nothing, hear me now. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. What they refuse to see in you does not define what you are capable of, because one day the world will call your name too. And when it does, it won't be in whispers. It will be in voices that carry, in hands raised in salute, in thunder that silences every doubt. That is the revenge no one can take from you. The quiet, steady kind written not in bitterness, but in medals, resilience, and a truth no one can erase.